Yo guys, we're back with another episode of Flawless Finance going live with the CEO, episode 6. Like I said, this is episode 6 of our live streaming series where we talk about a bunch of other stuff, sports, boxing, basketball, politics, economics, talk about a wide range of stuff. Go through the news and, give my takes and commentary on anything that's really going on. I think obviously first things first, we want to talk about Jake Paul knocking out Mike Perry last night. Now, that was a crazy fight. Jake Paul looked really good in the fight, to be honest. He looked really good. Jake Paul was putting in some clean work, was going to the body nicely, was putting his punches together, and after a few rounds, I think it was the 6th round, Jake Paul was able to get the knockout over Mike Perry, and it's a good win for Jake Paul. Of course, it's probably not his biggest win that he's had. But, considering he couldn't fight Mike Tyson, he had to fight Mike Perry. He put in a good performance, and he done what he was expected to do. And he was expected to knock him out, where Jake Paul, he's fought, probably higher profile MMA fighters like Tyron Woodley, Anderson Silva. He fought them and he didn't knock out Anderson Silva, to be fair, but beat Anderson Silva. That was a close fight, to be honest. But beat Anderson Silva and knocked out Tyron Woodley quite badly. You would kind of expect Jake Paul to do the same with Mike Perry. Even though Mike Perry, he's well established in the bare knuckle game. Boxing, it's a different sport. Bare knuckle, you can really, it's dogfights in bare knuckle, and you go out there and it really is who's the toughest. And Mike Perry, he's a tough guy. There's no denying that he's a tough guy. But I think the culture in boxing is just a bit different. The referee was there to stop the fight. It was getting too bad. Because Jake Paul was really landing some shots, and like I said, he was putting together clean work and putting punches together in bunches. So at that point, you have to be effectively defending yourself. Mike Perry probably isn't too capable of doing that. Even in his bare knuckle fights, there's not loads of defense. I think maybe that's to do with bare knuckle. You can't really defend yourself. You've got no gloves. It's pure bone on bone action. So you can't really defend yourself in bare knuckle. It's just all out offense, which kind of suited Mike Perry, but it's not the case in the sweet science of pro boxing. So yeah, it looked like a good fight. It looked like Mike Perry was coming forward for the most part, and was applying a bit of pressure to Jake Paul. But Jake Paul is far too smooth of an operator at this point in his career. One thing that I really respect about Jake Paul is that he lost to Tommy Fury, but he's still going. That kind of shows you how serious he is about the sport. Because a lot of influencer boxers probably would have had that loss and then be like, okay, I'm on to the next thing. I don't really love boxing like that. Jake Paul really seems to enjoy the sport, love the sport. He had a loss. For me, that fight against Tommy Fury wasn't really a close fight. I think Tommy Fury, I know it was a close fight in some respects. It was a close fight because Jake Paul did do some stuff, but it wasn't enough to get the win. But Jake Paul beats Mike Perry in a 6th round knockout. And we'll see what's next for Jake Paul. Well, we know what's next. He's got Tyson in November. I'd be really keen to know what you guys thought or think what will happen when these two face each other in November. And I'm also keen to know what you thought of this last fight Jake Paul had. Do you think Mike Perry was an easy opponent? Did you think Jake Paul put in a really good performance? Let me know what you guys think. And next what I wanted to talk about was the potential heir to Steph Curry's throne at Golden State. We're looking at Brandon Podziemski, a player who came into the draft last year in the 2023 NBA draft in the first round. He was a player that I really had my eyes on and really was hoping the Lakers would draft this guy because I'm a Lakers fan. But Golden State got there and they drafted him, and it was a really good draft, I think, for them. We're looking at his stats. He averaged 9 points, 6 rebounds, nearly 4 assists on acceptable field goal percentage efficiency. Acceptable. He shot 45% from the field, 38% from the 3, which is good. That's probably a bit above average. Shooting 38% from the 3. But obviously, you're not going to expect Brandon Pajemski to get loads of the rock last season when they had Steph on the roster, Chris Paul on the roster, and Clay as well. But now that they've not got CP3 and not got Clay anymore, that does free up a lot of time for Brandon to step up and step in. Obviously, you've got Steph. He's not getting any younger. Brandon isn't a like-for-like replacement for Steph. Let's not even pretend like that's the case, because it's not. But Brandon Pajemski is a player that can come off the bench or start, that will be able to contribute on both ends of the floor. He can get a bucket, can get a few assists, grabs boards. I think in college he averaged a near triple-double. If I can see his college stats, I don't know if I can here. College stats. Yeah, his college stats per game. Yeah, per game, well, he was averaging, 20 points a game, nearly 9 rebounds a game as a guard. As a guard, you're averaging those sorts of numbers, and was elite from the field. Shot 44% from three in college, and he's shooting 38% from three in the league. He's looking like he's going to be one of the better or above average 3-point shooters. I think that'd be safe to say. Obviously, he's not going to be able to replicate long-term Steph's bucket getting, Steph's 3-point shooting. He's not going to be able to replicate that. But if you're looking at a guy who can come off the bench or start games and make right plays, make winning plays, make smart plays, find his big men, follow the plays that the coach is putting out. Brandon Pajemski, he's going to be one of the better options in the league, without a shadow of a doubt. He's a decent size. He's a 6'5". I think here we've got him listed as a shooting guard, but to be honest, he could double as a point as well. He could easily double as a point. I've seen him play, and I think he can be ball dominant, but he's the type of player he can be whatever the team needs. I think Brandon Pajemski is one of those players. He can be whatever the team needs. If the team has got enough shooting and they need someone to make the plays, he can do that. If they, going a bit smaller, they need someone that can help crash the boards, he can do that. He's 6'5", but he gets up there. He gets up there. 6 rebounds as a shooting guard. That's quite good. But yeah, like I said, now that CP3 and Clay has left Golden State, potentially there's going to be a lot more room that's opened up for Brandon Pajemski, and I'm really excited to see what he can do, because he's a quality player. There's no denying that. He's definitely a player with some quality and some potential. And hey, if it doesn't work for him at the Golden State, then maybe he could find his way to the Lakers, which I would love. But let me guys know what you think of Brandon Pajemski. Do you think he had a good first season for Golden State? Do you think he'll be playing more next season? Let me know what you guys think. I'd be really keen to know. And next we're going to talk about this new Max Christie contract that he got from the Lakers. He got a 4-year deal, $32 million to return to the Lakers. I'd be really, really interested to know what you guys thought about this. He got a 4-year extension. He hardly played for the Lakers last season. Well, his first 2 seasons. He's been at the Lakers for 2 seasons now. He's really not done much. Yeah, the 21-year-old Christie has averaged 3.8 points and 2 rebounds. Getting under 4 points a game and 2 rebounds, and you're getting $32 million over 4 years. I guess perhaps this is the way that the league's going. But for me, in my thought, I think you should be offering contracts based off what guys have done, not what you think they could do. So Max Christie, you've averaged less than 4 points a game. You should be getting, a 4-year $50 million. Like a 4-year $15 million or 4-year $20 million at most. Not a 4-year $32 million. I think that's a bit crazy. But we'll see, because he was a player in college who did show a lot of promise as a 3-and-D player. A player that can play combo, shooting guard, small forward. He shot just under 38% at 3 at Michigan State in college. So I mean, perhaps if he's given a bit more clock, a bit more of a bigger role, as you would expect, his third season in the team, he should be given a bit more of a bigger role. Then maybe he can live up to that 32 million for four. But we'll see. We'll see. What else have we got here? Let's have a look. What else do you want to talk about? Yeah. Well, also, we want to talk about something else. Back to football. Yeah, we're seeing that Eddie Howe is saying he's committed to Newcastle, but doesn't really seem too keen to go for the England job, which doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me in a lot of ways because he's in a good spot at Newcastle. You know, he's at a spot where a team that's got money, that's got ambition. I think they might be having some issues with financial fair play, but we'll see what happens with that. But regardless, they've got a good team. They're in Europe. They'll probably be in Europe next season, as in they'll finish in league positions to finish in Europe for the season after. So I imagine Newcastle will finish in the top 7 or 8. So he's in a good spot. Doesn't seem like he's under any threat of really being sacked. I don't think there's too much pressure on him, even though I think in football everything does come to an end, and eventually there will be more pressure on him. But it's interesting to see that he's keen to stay at Newcastle. I think for a lot of people, he would be England's number one choice manager. I think most people would want to see Eddie Howe over Graham Potter. I think tactically, yeah, I would probably want to see Eddie Howe more. But because of this situation where Eddie Howe is currently at a job, I would probably prefer to see Graham Potter. Just because Graham Potter, he's been out of a club for a while. He's, in my opinion, just as good as a manager. Like I've talked about before when I talked about my video previously about Graham Potter going to the England team. Of course, Graham Potter, he did get sacked at Chelsea, but for me, if you're a manager, you get a 7-year deal and the owner sack you after 7 months. For me, that's more of a reflection on the owners than you, in my opinion. But it'd be interesting to see what happens with Eddie Howe at Newcastle, because Eddie Howe could find himself, potentially coming under pressure from Newcastle, maybe if he's not performing early on in the season or he can't get the transfers that he wants, then maybe that England job will be a bit more enticing to Eddie Howe. But at the moment, he's committed to Newcastle, and I think that does make sense for Eddie Howe. I think that probably is the better career move, because going to England, the England job, in a lot of ways, could be seen as career suicide. Or maybe not career suicide, but everything you do after England will be a step down. I think we saw this sort of with guys like Frank Lampard getting big jobs early on in his career. He did a year at Derby and then got the Chelsea job. Now, for a guy like Frank Lampard, the highest level he's ever going to get to is the Chelsea manager's job. And he's had that a year into his career. He's never going to reach the heights again. He got to that level early on in his career. He didn't really impress to most people. He didn't really impress. He got sacked. And then, he found himself at Everton and then, got sacked from there. And then that will be it for him. But, speaking of Frank Lampard, there's a lot of guys that saying, he's potentially a shout for the England team, but I've got no interest in seeing Frank Lampard manage the England team. I think Paul Merson was saying, he formerly played for England, and he experienced what it's like to play in a tournament. But for that, all we have to say is, if you consider failure experience, then hey man, I don't know what to say for you, man. But yeah, like we said, Eddie Howe staying committed to Newcastle amid England talk. But let's see what happens, because that's for now. Situations change. England could maybe put together a proposition that would really tempt Eddie Howe. But I do think it's key for a English manager to manage the England team. I know a lot of people have been talking about Pochettino, who I think he's a great coach, but England's history with foreign coaches isn't that good. I think Pochettino's probably, out of the options we've had, Pochettino's probably the best coach. Out of Eddie Howe, Graham Potter, Pochettino. I think Pochettino's the best coach out of them three. But I think the FA won't go in that direction again, where they had Capello and Eriksson, and those two were seen, in terms of media and perspective, were seen as wasting that golden generation. So I think it definitely will be an English manager next, but it doesn't look like it'll be Eddie Howe. But let's see what happens because situations change. Like I say, situations do change. How long have we been going for? How long have we been going for? Doesn't even say. Been going for a cool 15. Going for a cool 15. Okay. Let's keep going. Let's see what else we wanted to talk about here. Yes, one of my favourites. We had this guy. We've got Cesc Fabregas becoming head coach at Serie A club Como. Cesc Fabregas has become the head coach of Serie A club Como, having previously worked as their assistant head coach. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so Cesc Fabregas, I think him and Thierry Henry and a couple of other people had sort of invested into this club. Cesc had played football for Como. You know, he ended his career at Como. I think they were in Serie B or Serie C at the time. You know, I think Serie B or Serie C at the time, and invested in the club, really liked the project where they were going with it. Once Cesc Fabregas then retired, he then became the coach. Yeah, he was promoted to the head coach and managed them, but then managed them as caretaker. Then I think stepped down because I think to manage in Serie B or Serie A, he needed to have a coaching license that he didn't have at that time. So he started to train for that, started to learn for that, and then was the assistant coach for this past season. And now he's got his license, he can now become the head coach again. So it's really interesting to see, you know, a player like Cesc Fabregas going to Italy. You know, Cesc Fabregas was one of my first favourite players. So I started watching football, I want to say around 2007, 2008, and I'm an Arsenal fan. So basketball, Lakers, football, Arsenal. And Fabregas was one of my first favourite players. I think he might have been the captain around that time. You know, was young, was you know, come through the Arsenal academy. I think he joined Arsenal at like 15. Was, you know, such a good player. You know, a midfield maestro. You know, playing for Arsenal. You know, he was a young Spanish player with sauce that was playing for Arsenal. I was really happy to see him playing for Arsenal. Unfortunately, he left. I understand why. He was kind of tapped up by the Barcelona boys and wanted to go back to his boyhood club. Went back to Barcelona. And then had the opportunity to come back to Arsenal. I'm not sure if a lot of people know that, but he had the opportunity to come back to Arsenal, and Wenger said no because he said we had Granit Xhaka. I know. So Fabregas went to Chelsea, won the Premier League with Chelsea. Never came back to Arsenal, even though I would have opened him back with, I would have welcomed him back with open arms. But hey ho, that's the game. But Cesc Fabregas is managing Como. They're at the Serie A. They're a young, you know, there's a lot of young players in that team, a lot of unknown talent. Fabregas said, you know, it's going to be a tough and important season, but myself and the rest of the coaching staff are ready, and we all believe, you know, they all believe, and they've got that ambition to really try and push the standards and really try and improve what they've got in that situation. You know, they're you know, a small town in Italy, you know, a beautiful little stadium, but they're not, you know, financially they're going to struggle to compete with the Juventuses, the Milans, the Romas, where they're in major places in Italy and huge stadiums and huge institutions. But let's see what happens with Como and Cesc Fabregas. You know, I think Thierry Henry had also invested in this. I don't think he's involved in the coaching side much, because he's managing the French under-21s at the moment. Thierry Henry, he's one with an interesting managerial career. Maybe we'll talk about that in one stream. Probably not this one, but I'm sure one stream we'll talk about him. But Cesc Fabregas managing Como, you know, dream scenario for me is him get a few years experience here, then he joins Mikel as an assistant at Arsenal, and you know, that I could die a happy man at that point. But we'll see what happens. I think Fabregas was a tremendous player. I think a lot of the best managers were midfielders. You know, we talk about Pep, we talk about Mikel. I think of who else. Yeah, I'm sure there's more guys that come to mind, but a lot of the best players were previously, you know, centre mids that played in those deep line roles that were really able to see, you know, big amounts of the pitch to dictate, you know, help dictate play. So I think potentially we've got potentially, you know, really good young up and coming manager with Fabregas here. We'll see what happens with Como. We'll see if he can keep them up, because it's going to be a difficult season. You know, they're going to be one of the favourites to go down, I would imagine, surely. If not, they'll probably be a lower half team. But we'll see, because, you know, Fabregas, if they've got some money behind them, you know, from Fabregas and Thierry Henry, and the name Cesc Fabregas will be able to attract a certain calibre of player for sure. For sure, that will attract a certain calibre of player. So we'll see what happens with Cesc there. And we'll see what happens with Como, if they can stay up, if they can, you know, start to build themselves and become an established Serie A team. And who knows, in, you know, 4 or 5 years, maybe pushing for those European spots. Who knows, you know, stranger things have happened in football. I'd be really interested to see and follow Cesc Fabregas' career. Let me know what you guys think, and where you'd like to see Cesc Fabregas manage next. If you would want him to see him manage next, you know. I understand he's got a 4-year deal with Como, and I think he is an investor there. I think, don't quote me, I think he's an investor there. So he may never want to leave. He might say, you know, this is now my club. I don't want to leave. So we'll see what happens there. But I think that's going to be it from me, guys. Yeah, that's going to be it from me, guys. It's been a pleasure, as always. I'm going to probably end the stream now. It's been a great time, guys, and I'm going to hopefully, guys, you know, view this and involved in the super chats and all that stuff. But I'm going to probably end the stream now and then get some clips up. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Peace.